Hi guys, welcome back to The Contented Plant. Today we are going to talk about the Hoya Crimson Queen. I've had this plant since last summer. My mom bought it for me and I have not done a video on it yet because it has actually had a few struggles to get to where it is right now. I had issues with black mildew and it came with, I think, 4 leaves. It was just this little bit at the top here. And it immediately started to get black spots all over it and the leaves were falling off. So we've since got through that disaster and it's now grown all the way up here and it has put out another vine with this beautiful, beautiful white variegated leaves. So what's kind of unique about this beautiful Hoya is sometimes it's called a wax plant. It has these really thick, fleshy, waxy leaves that are just beautiful. And it kind of has this woody vine that it grows on. It does like to climb or trail, so you can either have it in a spot where it's going to climb. A lot of people put it on like a circle trellis or a heart trellis and have it grow kind of up and around like that in a pot, or you can have it in a hanging basket and let it hang down. Kind of up to you. This plant can be grown in soil, it can be grown in leca. It does pretty well as long as you let it dry out. The Hoya is kind of similar to a succulent. It's going to want to err a little bit on the drier side when it comes to soil. It has these really thick leaves that hold a lot of excess water. So this can easily get overwatered because those leaves make this plant very drought tolerant. So if you do water it too much, you will find you'll get root rot very quickly with this plant. I just watered mine a couple days ago. A good way to tell if they need water is to do a leaf test. You can kind of push on it, and if it easily folds that way, or if it easily folds in this way, just be careful not to snap your leaf, then you know that it needs water. Mine would not fold without snapping it, so I know that mine has plenty of water. It is nice and happy, and I probably won't water this for about a month. I like to let mine sit and get really dry. So you're going to want to keep this in soil that is really light. You're going to want it to be very porous, well draining, and not a soil that's going to hold onto a lot of water. So I like to put a little extra perlite in mine. You can also add a little extra peat in it. A lot of people like to put it in a very peat heavy soil. You don't want to have this in straight potting soil. That will get really, really dense and heavy around those roots, and they can hold on to water and rot. So make sure it is in a well-draining soil mix, and always, always, always make sure you have your Hoya Crimson Queen in a pot with a drainage hole. So the Hoya does really well in bright indirect light. You can also have it in light that's kind of filtered, kind of like it would grow out in nature. It would grow up a tree and kind of be under the canopy of trees and getting a lot of filtered sunlight down into the leaves. So I like to have mine in a spot that gets pretty bright light and it grows quite a bit quicker. You do need to be careful if you have it in a spot that receives lots of direct light. I'm talking 3 or 4 hours of direct sunlight. You're probably going to sunburn your leaves. This plant can get sunburned. You're going to start to see spots appearing on the leaves. It can get sun stressed. So if you start to see damage from the sun, move your Hoya back. Hoyas are kind of unique in the houseplant world because they can actually flower. A lot of the houseplants don't flower, the pothos, all these really popular plants that you see behind me. They're beautiful, they grow these nice green leaves, but they are not going to flower. A Hoya will flower if you have it in the proper conditions, and that means it's super happy with the soil, it's happy with the light, it's happy with the fertilizer, and it's a well cared for plant. To achieve a flowering Hoya, a lot of times you're going to need to provide proper lighting conditions. Sometimes that can mean an hour or 2 of nice sunlight. You can make that sunlight indirect by using a sheer curtain or something that shields the Hoya from that direct burning sunlight, but you are going to need to provide lots of light if you want to encourage your plant to flower. This plant does great in indoor temps ranging from 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. There are climates that you can grow this outdoors. I think Florida, they do pretty well outdoors. I would not try and grow this outside in the fall if you live in a colder climate. If it drops below 50 degrees outdoors, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so right now 50 is the high, and at night it's dropping down into the 30s. So I would definitely not leave a Hoya outside in those conditions. However, I might be able to get away with putting this outside in the summertime, just as long as those nighttime temperatures don't drop below 50. So for repotting, Hoyas like to be nice and cozy in their pot. They like to have their roots really tight. They're not a plant that's going to need to be repotted too frequently. Some people get away with repotting them every 2 to 3 years. This is still in the nursery pot that it came in, and I can feel there's still lots and lots of room. So I'm just going to leave this guy be in this pot. If you do repot it, make sure you're repotting it very carefully. Once they get bigger, that can be very tricky, especially if you have it trained up on something. You're gonna have to unwind those vines very carefully to make sure you're not causing the plant damage. You can prune this plant if it's getting too long or if it's kind of growing into a shape that you don't like. You can use sterile scissors. I like to rub them with rubbing alcohol and let them dry before I cut the plant. And you can just trim it to any shape you want, or if you've got one of these runners that's getting really long, you can go ahead and trim one of those runners off. This is a fairly easy plant to propagate, so if you do prune it, you can save those extra runners by making sure you have a couple of nodes and placing those nodes down into the water. After a couple weeks, you should have roots start to emerge. You can also propagate this in moist soil. A lot of times it'll do best if it has kind of a barrier over it. So some people use like Tupperware containers with a lid, something that will encourage a lot of humidity and keep that soil moist while the plant grows new roots. So let's talk about some of the problems that can occur with this plant. Number one would be pests. Just like any house plant, it's susceptible to spider mites. It's very susceptible to mealybugs. It has these large fleshy leaves that mealybugs absolutely love. So make sure you're keeping a close eye on your plant, so if you do get pests, that you can treat them quickly. You do not want to let those pests get a good foothold on your plant. I like to treat them with a neem oil spray every once in a while. You can take some pure rubbing alcohol if you do see mealybugs on there. Use a Q-tip dipped in the pure alcohol and rub it right on the bugs and they will die. However, there's still going to be eggs and other things left on there, so when you are treating pests, make sure that you continue the treatment process every few days until you are sure they are all gone, because those eggs will hatch out and new larvae will appear and you'll think you're in the clear, but you're not. So when I was given this plant, it was just this main stem here where these larger leaves are. And it was doing okay for a couple weeks, and then I kind of noticed that it was starting to get black spots that were appearing all over the surface of the leaf. It would get one black spot, a couple days later it would have 2 more black spots, and it would continue to get black spots until that leaf became really limp and basically just died off. So I was very concerned that there was something horribly wrong going on, which there was. Every few days, another leaf would get those black spots. And I eventually had this just down to 1 leaf. So to treat it, I was rubbing it with neem oil, and I would also take off every leaf that I saw that had the black spots on it. And eventually it has grown this new stem and the black spots have gone away. I searched high and low for anybody that could help me on the internet figure out what those black spots were. There's a number of things that can cause it. I was pretty confident it was not root rot, because at that point I was not watering this plant at all. I was gonna let it really dry out just in case it was a problem with the roots. The only thing that I can figure out is that it might have had some kind of a fungal infection when it came over from the nursery. And I think by treating it and removing any of the leaves with black spots, it eventually fixed itself. I've seen some people have issues with the black or brown spots with sun damage, but this to me seemed a lot like a fungal infection, because those black spots would appear, the leaves would kind of rot on the vine and I would take them off. And I just kind of let the plant work through whatever issue it was having. I did help it out by wiping it down. I'd remove those leaves with black spots, and I would say we are totally in the clear now. I haven't seen any black spots on it for about 4 months, and it has put out this huge new vine, and it seems to be quite happy, and it has put out this brand new stem. So I think we're in the clear. We took care of that problem. So let's really quickly talk about the coloring of this plant. This plant is commonly referred to as a tricolor plant because you can see it has this beautiful pink right here on these newer leaves, and it also has green and it has white. So it's just a beautiful plant. And when it does flower, it has these really beautiful pink flowers that kind of hang down, and they smell really wonderful. At night, they kind of emit this smell that's stronger, that is just so delicious. So it's a beautiful plant, very pretty, and a nice plant to add to your houseplant collection. I'm very excited to have it. This is my first Hoya, so we will see how it does. We've survived our first disaster, and I'm excited to see it grow. If you guys have any questions, please leave them down below, and I will do my best to answer them for you. I'm gonna kind of learn Hoyas right along with you. I'm excited to see how this one does. Right now I have it in my kitchen window, and it's kind of, I have it trellising up the window. So I would love it to go all the way around my window in the kitchen and kind of frame it out. So we'll see how that does. I will keep you guys updated. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time at the Contented Plant. Bye-bye.